But first, before we get into the episode, we need to issue a content warning. Due to the nature of the show, we will be discussing sensitive topics which could include murder, violence, sexual assault, domestic abuse, animal abuse, elder abuse, alcohol, drugs, racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, and more. Please take this into account when deciding when, where, and if to listen.
Hello and welcome to Looking for a Man in His 30s, a Criminal Minds podcast. I'm Emma.
And I'm Sara, and today we'll be discussing Season 1, Episode 16, The Tribe, which premiered on March the 8th of 2006.
But first, Sara, let's have a little chat. Do you want to go first?
Sure. So, not much has happened in the few weeks since we last recorded. When did we record? I don't know.
I think it was 2 weeks ago.
Yes, because we were supposed to record last week, but then I was ill. So.
Yes.
Anyways, I wanted to tell you about something Mother bought last week.
Mm-hmm.
That is the greatest, most invention to ever exist.
Mm-hmm.
And they are night vision driving glasses. So they look like sunglasses. You can wear them over glasses.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a bonus. And there's like a yellow tint in the lens. So any bright headlights, it turns into a lovely shade of yellow just to calm down a bit. So I am no longer blinded.
Yes. I have never heard of something that I'd like more.
Yes.
Because every time someone is like flashing you with those bright freaking beams, I swear to God, I think, oh my God, is that an alien craft that's just like landed there? I swear to God, I've seen planes less lit up when they are coming down to land.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need it for your fucking Audi. They don't need to be bright white.
No.
Bad for your eyes.
The worst invention was LED lights and headlights.
Yeah. Do you think we should go around and take this into our own hands and just get rid of all those LED lights?
Yeah. Like, I struggle to see as it is. I wear glasses, so why blind me even more?
I know, exactly.
I tried to get another pair of glasses to put over my glasses in order to not run somebody over when there's an idiot blinding me.
Yeah. I think that actually they should just be forced to like tint the fucking glass over the headlights. Like, I don't know entirely what LED lights are. So I don't know if it's like one of those things where it's like the bulb lasts longer. Great. Could it not blind me in the meantime?
Yes. So everyone, especially drivers, get them. Get these glasses for nighttime driving because it will help so much. Yes.
Okay, so I don't have anything really interesting to say because, as Sarah will know, the past 2 weeks I've just been clearing a relative's house after their death. But one thing I do have to say is that someone on eBay has pissed me off, and finally I can say something about it. Basically, I run the eBay page for a local community group.
Yeah.
And someone had donated those like meerkats that you could get, the stuffed meerkat toys.
Are you looking for the meerkats? I had a big one.
There was a baby Oleg one, and I think there's another Oleg one as well.
Yeah.
But so just to let you know, Sarah, I was so I listed these. One of them sold. I sent it, and because it was like brand new, like it had been put up on a shelf, but it definitely hadn't been like opened or anything.
Yeah.
Like it still had those little tags that they use to secure toys into the box. And so I list it, I sell it, it gets to the buyer, and they just send me a message going, this has clearly been used. It's not brand new in box and it smells kind of weird. And I was like, fucking doesn't. And I was like, I think what she's trying to do is get me to be like, oh no, I'm so sorry. Here you go, have some money off or something, or
Yeah.
even just cancel the order and refund her the full amount because it's cheaper and less hassle than having it sent back to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And so then I ignored her for a couple of days until she actually put in a request, like an official return request. And I was like, okay, checkmate. And I clicked the thing to get you to like buy the return postage for her, and the label was good until November 21st. And I was like, I don't think she's going to send it, because I think all she was trying to do was get like the £7 back for the item plus postage.
And then have a free teddy,
Yeah. And so I was like, no, I'm going to pay for the postage back. Send it to me when you can. She didn't fucking send it. I've had no message since. Absolutely no message since. And I was like, so it was just a scam. I see. And so then eBay has automatically closed the return because she didn't send it back. And I was like, oh, just like I said. So I was so tempted to like write feedback on her profile and be like, by the way, just so you know, she does tend to institute little fake return claims. So if she asks you to return an item, call her bluff.
Yeah.
But I haven't done that yet. The eBay only closed it a week after that, so I think they closed it on the 28th. But it feels good to get that off my chest finally. Because I was like, oh, you can't say anything until it's closed. Moral of the story is Emma is extremely petty.
Yeah.
So anyway, shall we get into the episode, Sara?
Sure.
I don't think we have anything else to talk about right now.
No.
Okay, so we'll be back with the episode recap after this short break.
Welcome back. And now we're on to Emma with the episode recap. So Emma, wheels up.
Wheels up. So we start off in Terra Mesa, New Mexico, and some teens are partying in what appears to be a house in the process of being built. Like, there are plastic dust sheets down everywhere. It kind of looks like maybe the windows aren't, like, they haven't pulled the film off the windows yet. And it does look like there's no electricity in the house so far, which I suppose explains the Catholic Mass amount of candles that are just lit flames, barely secured all around this house.
Yeah, such a health hazard.
I looked at it and I was like, they're going to burn this fucking house down.
Yeah.
Now, this is the most ridiculous part of the story. I know we go on to cults a bit later, Sara, but this is the bit I found ridiculous. These are college students, right?
Mm.
There's no indication that any of these people are underage or might still live with their parents.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why, in order to like have sex with each other, they haven't gone back to their goddamn dorms. They were like, instead, 6 of us will break into this house that's in the middle of being built. We can put a blanket down to cover the construction dust, and then we can just have sex on top of that. I don't think of myself as someone who's particularly a prude, but I just don't see how anything about this is attractive. Like, hey, do you want to go to this house that's in the middle of being built? Why? Oh, we're going to drink there and then we're going to have sex. All right, can we not do that in my dorm room or your dorm room? Like, I don't understand why we have to go to this crappy house and where there's no electricity, there's no freaking heating, just getting construction dust in places you definitely don't want construction dust.
No. Kind of the same reason why the beach isn't necessarily a good idea either.
No. Their beaches are romantic, but there's nothing that's going to be good about having sex on the sand or in the sea. Absolutely nothing. Really sorry. So anyway, there's one guy who's handing a drink to a girl, and then they just start making out. Like, the girl that we follow around the house, Ingrid, she is just standing there with this girl. This guy comes up, hands the girl a drink, and then immediately their tongues are in each other's mouths. And I'm like, what about poor Ingrid? She was just standing there. And then you're just like, oh. So then she wanders off. Ingrid wanders off to find the bathroom or something. She gives some excuse. We later find out it's just an excuse. And again, she walks past another couple, which appear to be like half naked at least by this point. And Sarah, what do we know about the desert?
Hot, dusty, barren.
But what do we know about the desert at night, Sarah?
Creatures. Creepy people. Murder. Delicious.
No, but the temperature drops.
Oh, that too.
It can be like 45 degrees in the day, and then it's like 0 degrees at night.
Yeah.
Go back to your dorms. So we follow Ingrid around the house as she searches for the bathroom and just finds more of her friends having sex in weird places. And then there's footage of the house from outside. It's being overlooked by a few people. And then you see Ingrid standing in the window with her lit candle like she's a mad woman in a 19th century novel. Like she's the ex-wife that is locked in the attic. That is the vibes I got. So there's voices you can hear as you spot Ingrid in the window that are saying, oh, that's our girl. And so immediately I thought, oh my God, she lured them all there to be murdered. And although I am like, I don't see how you managed to lure those people there. I just don't get it. Ingrid has not gone to the bathroom and instead goes down to the back door, opens the screen door, and then wanders out into the garden like she was expecting people. Perhaps the people that saw her and were like, there she is. But no. The flame blows out on the candle. She's looking around confused as if she saw something weird. And that's why she opened the door. But then, suddenly, out of fucking nowhere, a hand comes, clamps over her mouth, and she is being dragged away. One of the boys, presumably the one who was supposed to be hooking up with Ingrid, comes down the stairs looking for her, finds the screen door open, and at the same time, several people, all dressed in black, run down the hill towards the open door, and with fucking no warning at all, they burst in, overpowering the one guy who isn't distracted by his girlfriend, and all you see on screen are like red flashes and knife slashes, and you're like, God. Cut to the BAU offices. Garcia is carrying around some kitchen towel and some disinfectant spray, presumably because Gideon has been in her office again. And she's walking past the elevators when she sees an extremely handsome man walk out of the escalators. A man that, if you put him on a beach holding a surfboard, you would automatically think, yeah, that fits. That's totally him. Anyway, Garcia abandons these cleaning supplies quickly, shoving them into the arms of the nearest person to walk past her. Doesn't bother to ask whether they are actually a cleaner or whether they even work there, and following the guy. And, you know, I like to think that Garcia was just following him because she was like, well, I know that the last thing I'd want is to be lost in a government building. So I should go and follow that guy and make sure he's okay. He knows where he's going. I mean, the last thing Garcia wants is for anyone to be inconvenienced in a government building. Because that's never happened before and it shouldn't start now. Elle comes over to Garcia and asks why she's out of her bunker, which seems a bit rude, if I'm honest. Like, what are you doing here with the rest of us? All right, Elle. Garcia gives like a mumbled excuse, but doesn't matter at all about the excuse. The guy has turned round and is about to ask them a question, but is cut off by Morgan coming round the corner and greeting him. We learn that this man is Sean and he is looking for Hotch. And I'm sure you're thinking, is that a new team member? Is he a witness? Is he a lawyer? The answer to all of those is no. He's actually Hotch's brother. And that is something that none of the women at the BAU can quite believe. Elle and Garcia look at each other in what is basically shock. They ask whether Hotch was adopted, because, like, that's not the same gene pool. And I think that is slightly mean, guys. Come on. This is season 1. Hotch is still allowed to smile. By season 8, he hasn't smiled once in 3 years. So then I'll give it to you that he does look very much like that.
I've seen the memes.
Yeah.
Bless you. Can I just say that when the Sean came on the screen, I was the same as Penelope and Elle when I acted like this. Following his every move.
Just like your eyes basically flew out of your skull.
Yeah, do you know the cartoons when like fly their eyes?
Hearts.
Yeah, it was like. Ooh.
So Sean goes into Hotch's office, and Hotch hangs up on whoever he's talking to greet his brother. And I'm like, sorry, you're a unit chief. Why are you just hanging up on people to greet your brother unexpectedly at work? Like, you wouldn't get away with that if you worked in a McDonald's and you hung up on someone to greet your brother. What the hell are you doing, Hotch? Anyway, Hotch is really proud of his baby brother getting into Georgetown law. Ribs him about having long hair, but offers to give him a tour of the BAU. Something that I'm, again, surprised BAU agents are just allowed to do. Hi, civilian. Let me give you a tour of the top secret government office. I think that's wrong. Anyway, issues of national security aside, Sean turns down the offer because he has news for Hotch. He's turning down Georgetown law to work in a restaurant in New York.
Oh,
and that goes down about as well as you can imagine. It's like telling your grandmother you're getting a septum piercing. Yeah, I actually put in my notes. Hotch reacts to this news as if Sean said, I've been thinking about dyeing my hair blue. Sorry, are you joking? Is this some sort of prank? It turns into an argument because Hotch tries to convince him to go to law school in New York. What about Columbia? Sean's always wanted to follow in Dad's footsteps, in my footsteps. And Sean's like, yeah, Dad ended up dead at 47. And Hotch tries to be like, hey, I'm doing okay. And, oh, honey, I think Sean knows something you don't, because you're not okay. You will not be okay very much longer. The argument leads to Sean stomping out like he has been told he cannot play Roblox. He just stomps out past JJ, Elle, and Garcia, who are still reacting to the news that Sean is Hotch's brother. And Hotch runs out after him, tries one last impassioned plea to have him thinking over, but Sean's not having it. And then JJ is like, yeah, actually, I do see the resemblance. And it's their stubbornness. Cut to the conference room. JJ is going over the case. 5 students found in a new built house in New Mexico. No sexual assault, but my God, the most horrific death you've ever heard. I'm actually gonna tell people they should skip ahead 30 seconds if they don't want to hear this. But honestly, I'm not sure the rest of the episode gets better. So, impaled, skinned.
Yeah.
So, that's awful. The team believe the killers are hunting as a pack, which never sounds good. They determine the pack will keep killing until they are stopped, and Elle says, stopped by what? And the team misses the opportunity to say, stopped by us. Although Gideon does say, stopped by a stronger pack, so I suppose the implication is that the BAU is a stronger pack.
Awful, but yeah.
Okay, so cut to the jet. We're getting the Nietzsche quote read by Hotch. The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. And I think that's a lot of the theme of the episode. Individual overcoming pack mentality.
Yeah.
Sean trying to be independent from the pack that is family lawyers. At the crime scene, Hotch, Reed and Gideon are greeted by the local sheriff and they ask what's been done so far. Have you dusted the prints? And the sheriff's like, yeah, CSU said there was no point because there have been so many tradespeople in and out. Plumbers, electricians, builders. And I seem to remember this happening before. There's no point dusting for prints. And then as it turns out, the person who was like, well, I'm going to dust for prints, they actually ended up solving the case. Why are so many of these people unwilling to do their job? Oh no, will it take too long? Oh, will you have to exclude all of the people that worked on the site?
Oh, no.
Oh well, just do it, it's your job.
Yeah.
Now, one positive about the murders happening inside an active building site is that all the plastic dash sheets will have also prevented the blood from staining like the banister rail and the walls and the floors. So that was kind of nice of the murderers, you've got to think. We can murder 5 college students, but let's not take down the valuation of the house. That would be terrible for the economy. And when you get outside in the what I assume is the backyard, but could be the front. No, it's definitely the back. There's a massive blood stain on the ground. And here is where you get told that there is no warm-up to this, by the way. You just get, they were skinned alive. And you're like, sorry, what? And, oh, there's very little blood. Reed suggests the reason for this is that when skinning the victims, the murderers avoided places where the veins are closer to the skin, like the neck and the wrist, and they did this to make the torture last longer, so they didn't bleed out. Skinned alive.
Yeah, give me shivers.
Yeah, absolutely disgusting. And sorry about that, guys. So, the team determined from the sleeping bag situation that there is a missing person because it's unlikely 2 couples would have brought another guy to the house. Although, and I hate to keep saying this, Sarah, but if you are already taking your friends to a mid-construction house to have sex there, why on earth would you presume that this wasn't some sort of situation where it's just a freaking orgy? Like, they have so many candles around. It's like a power ballad music video from the 1980s. The least weird situation here is that they were also having an orgy.
Yeah.
And then they go outside to look at the site of the impaling, which I mentioned earlier, and horrifying news. Turns out, from the amount of blood they found, they determined that he was alive for most of it. And historically, you might find that this is actually done a lot. If you listen to any like medieval history podcasts, you'll notice that people are doing this to their enemies or just anyone that pissed them off. There's a reason. He's called Vlad the Impaler. Let me just say that. Because from listening to a history podcast about Vlad the Impaler, I do know that if you do it the right way, you can avoid hitting any vital organs. And so the person will actually be dying for 4 days straight, slowly bleeding out. Reed thinks that these are all rituals of the Native American Plains tribes. And the sheriff says, well, actually, turns out the entire area we're standing on is Apache land. And there's a Native American burial site. And this was the site of some massacres as well. Now, leaving aside every single horror novel trope that you can read about in any 1970s horror book, it's kind of a shitty move to build on top of people's graves, especially when their descendants are still alive to see something. Like, the entire of London is built on plague pits, but no one is like, hey, that's my grandmother you're building the tube on top of.
Yeah.
Hodge tries to confirm with the sheriff, is this native land? And the sheriff's like, well, it was, but they didn't have the money or inclination to develop it, so the local council took it off them. Dick move. So, yeah, using eminent domain to seize land that isn't being developed upon is essentially putting more property that is in greenbelt undeveloped land, turning it into brownfield site, which is sites that have already been built upon. And why are you doing this? Why? Stop it. So the Apache is now fighting the town because the town wants to seize the other half of the fucking valley. And I do not see how the council are like, well, we're going to take all of this like perfectly unused land, and we'll develop that. And no one can develop the fucking Quickie Mart near me that has been dilapidated and rotting since like 2000. This is a personal call out to Portsmouth City Council. Get rid of that empty shop, which I think is just basically where the rats and the pigeons are planning to take over the city. Go in there. Probably at this point you'll need to demolish it, but then you can build houses upon there, and you don't have to build them in Tipner West, where it's basically on top of a swamp.
It's like in my hometown. There's a shopping centre in the town centre, and it faces the town hall. So it's a prime location. So there was plans years ago to like knock it down, build a hotel, build apartments, yada yada, regenerate the area, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they started kicking the shops out of the shopping centre. I think the last.
Great to do that when you don't have plans, isn't it?
Yeah, so the last one moved early this year. So now it's practically an abandoned shopping centre.
Mm-hmm.
And the plans still haven't gone through to turn it into anything else yet. So it's vacant for God knows how many years.
That was rather than putting the cart before the horse, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, if we can just call out Bolton Town Council and Portsmouth City Council so that we can at least get this fixed where we are.
Yeah.
If I have to walk past the, headquarters of the Rat Pigeon Alliance one more time, I'm going to start knocking it down myself. So the team get Garcia to investigate the Native American tribe that is in the area, to see whether any of them would be capable of this sort of violence. And she says, well, there's one Native American who's been arrested for multiple things, like protesting. And when you're like, well, that doesn't mean he'd be capable of mass murder. Holding a placard and swearing at a freaking council person is not the same as skinning someone alive. So anyway, massive jump there. Turns out this guy is called John Blackwolf. And the sheriff even outright states he's not done anything violent. I don't think it can be him. But also, he is the reservation police. So the team think they've encountered an issue, and they drive up to question Blackwolf at the local Native American school. I should state here that they do keep saying Indian. I'm not going to. I am aware that Native American people themselves will sometimes use the term to refer to themselves. Still doesn't mean I, as a white person, should be doing that. So,
Yeah.
They are greeted by Ms. Bear. She is the president of the tribal council and principal of the reservation school, which is, you know, a lot to do. She defends Blackwolf when they start asking questions that relate to the Terra Mesa killings, saying he would never do anything violent. All he's trying to do is protect his tribe. From there we learn that some pretty scummy capitalism things have happened, including the developers of this land paying local Native American families to abandon their homes, and now there are less people living on the reservation, which means there are fewer people in the class, which leaves the entire tribe more isolated and more at risk of scummy developers coming in and underpaying them for their land. Basically, what I'm saying is capitalism sucks, and maybe you shouldn't just be able to offer money to people to get them to move. We're walking into a classroom where Blackwolf is quizzing the students on Native American history, and Reed knows every answer. He is muttering them under his breath. And he really wants credit from the teacher because he is whispering the answers at first. And then the teacher calls upon a student, Samuel, and asks the question. And before Samuel can even open his mouth, Reed is there and blurts the entire answer out, which Hotch then scolds him for. Reed, is your name Samuel? So the agents want to talk to Blackwolf, and so Bear takes over in the classroom. Blackwolf grabs a knife from the drawer of the teacher's desk, which I am like,
how'd you do?
maybe if the FBI is questioning you, don't like get a bladed weapon out. But all right. Apparently he uses that instead of a gun. So the team introduces themselves to Blackwolf, and he reads them for filth. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Please let me know, Gen Z. He says Gideon looks like a college professor, Reed looks like a college student, and yeah, Hotch looks like FBI. And not an uncommon thing to happen at all. For the first time in the series, Hotch does not have to explain the BAU to a guest character. Oh my god. He doesn't have to go over and listen to the questions like, oh, you can tell what cereal they eat based on their kill method. And I'm like, oh, thank God. Blackwolf says that Hotch should know from the profile that the murderers weren't conducted by the Apache people because they don't do massacres. The US government does. And checks notes. He's right. I'll give you some homework, listeners. Google Trail of Tears. It's worse than it sounds.
I concur.
They ask Blackwolf to look over photos of the crime scene, and he knows that it's because they think he's a suspect. He says, you're not asking me this because I'm a cop, are you? And they try and smooth it over by saying, we're asking you because you're an expert on Native American rituals, but he does not believe this for 1 second. He says he can't tell anything from the pictures, and says, I need to be taken to the crime scene so I can look at it. As they approach the house, Reed is giving facts about the Apache tribes, including that they were able to track a man or animal through any condition, and Hotch scoffs, which is a bit rich from a profiler. He goes, "Oh, you're profiling the dirt. Bitch, what do you think you do? We're not going to be all high and mighty about what people can tell from... You have a ridiculous job." Anyway, Black Wolf immediately shuts Hotch up by revealing that he can tell that Hotch wears a second gun in an ankle holster because there's an almost impossible to spot difference in his footsteps. Hotch, for some reason, argues with this, saying you can't possibly tell there's a difference. And it's like, how do you think he knew you were wearing a gun in your ankle holster? Like, what? You can't tell. There's not a difference. All right, are you wearing a gun in the ankle holster? Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. I think it fucking does. And again, rich coming from you, dude. We find out from Black Wolf that although the killing and torture methods are Native American in origin, they mix together the most brutal torture methods from various tribes: Apache, Navajo, Sioux, Pueblo, Comanche. As Native Americans would know this, they're not going to mix them up. They're not going to use some rituals from each tribe in like a weird piecemeal sort of thing. And it's just like a white person to appropriate the culture of people of color and indigenous people. White people. Even during murder, they can culturally appropriate things. Black Wolf also correctly points out that there was a sixth person in the house and that she was taken from the house by two men, and then a further 6 people entered the house via the embankment, putting their feet inside the other's footprints so as to confuse the police. He has done all this and he hasn't even walked inside, by the way. He is literally like, well, I've solved your case anyway.
Yeah.
Turns out that Hotch knows Black Wolf isn't the killer because he remained really calm and detached at the crime scene, which is kind of exactly what the BAU do. Black Wolf recounts the tales of Native American massacres at the hands of white settlers, saying the Apache tribes choose to undermine the settlers by stealing their horses and other weapons, rather than murder, which would have set off a blood war. They're back at the local station house now. JJ interrupts to say no one's reported this girl missing, and we haven't had any demands from the kidnappers, so we don't know who she is or why she was kidnapped. Black Wolf says he'll stay and help them, but only because he wants to keep the police and the FBI off the reservation. During the profile, we see Reed is explaining this is someone who has a knowledge of Native American culture, but has definitely never practiced it themselves. While Morgan says that the pack who murdered the teens share a singular vision and it's likened to a cult. Some cults are based on religion, some politics, others racism, you know, because your cult can't just be something that's a bit wacky. It has to be something fucking terrible as well. While Morgan is talking, the screen overlaps with videos of cult leaders, and one of them is Heaven's Gate, one of them is Waco, and then there's a third image that I did think was Patty Hearst, but I didn't actually look that up. So I think they did name it as someone else on the Criminal Minds wiki. So we get kind of again the core message of the episode. Surrendering individuality is how the cults control their members, and a smarter person than me could link this to American individualism and American exceptionalism against a sort of communist boogeyman, or more specifically, because this was written during 2 wars in the Middle East, some sort of Middle Eastern boogeyman. But we will wait for a smarter person than me to chime in the comments and tell me. So they think that what's going to tell them most about the cult is the kidnapping, because that's reminiscent of political terrorist groups, like in the case of Patty Hearst being kidnapped by the Symbionese Liberation Army. So they think they're looking for a domestic terrorist organization. And the team is sure Black Wolf wasn't in on it. It's not the Native Americans, even though the sheriff's officers do dispute this. The team speculates that it's probably someone trying to make the Native Americans look bad. For instance, the developers who were trying to develop the land that the Apache own and are currently fighting it in court. But Hotch asks if there's anyone else apart from the developers who might be looking to smear Native Americans. Turns out there is. It's called the American Defense Union. And just a little hint, if the name of a group ever includes the word defense plus a culture that needs absolutely no defense in the country it's in, it's racist. So the sheriff starts to tell the team about the American Defense Union, and oh boy, he describes them like the Minutemen policing the borders, an already horrible start. And he explains that they blame everything on the Native Americans. Al asks who's the members. Now, are you ready for this, Sarah? Brace yourself. Listeners, sit down. The sheriff reveals that the members of the American Defense Union are mostly white.
No fucking shit.
What a shocking turn of events. Now, so they get this Minton in to decide if he's just racist or if he's looking to make money off of blaming marginalized groups for things that are wrong with the system as a whole. You know, you can't get a good job well paying, not because immigrants are stealing the jobs, but because companies will underpay you unless literally told otherwise. If you are earning minimum wage, that's your employer saying, if I could legally pay you less, I would. So they want to decide whether Minton is a racist or just a capitalist. And, oh, it might be both, but it's definitely the fucking first one. He starts off in this interview by being like, the Native American people, he does not use Native American people, but I am.
Yeah.
They're violent, especially the Apache. Did you know they used to put victims' heads on wooden pikes outside their houses? And, oh boy, if you're disgusted by Native Americans killing white people who invaded their land and tried to take it for themselves, I have horrible stories to tell you about the westward expansion of America. If you just put in the phrase, manifest destiny, and, yeah, see how far you get with that before being like, oh. Actually, I'll be honest with you, I have bad news to tell you about when Europeans first arrived in America. And all of America from its founding until, like, the Civil War. Oh, and the Dutch in South Africa. And the British in South Africa. Basically, what I'm saying is that white people have a long history, as long as time itself, of going into other countries, taking what they liked, killing anyone who got in their way, and then repeating these stories where they paint themselves as the noble crusader, and the people whose countries they have literally fucking gone in without permission are such a fucking burden. The savages. Mate, you're the one who rocked up there and tried to take their fucking stuff. I don't know why you're so upset about it. See, Sarah, you didn't think that in this article I would go on a tangent about colonialism, did you?
No.
Anyway, Minton continues to racism his way through the interview, saying nothing groundbreaking or astonishing. Although he does admit that his members have 450 guns to their 200 members. And constitutional right or not, why do you need more than one gun per person? You're not going to be able to shoot them in both hands like you're fucking Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. And then we get a quote from Gideon, which I think may be the best quote from Gideon of all time. I think it will go down in history like this. Do you remember in the 1997 movie Pocahontas where the Native Americans are watching the settlers and saying, these white men are dangerous. It's like that.
Yeah.
So Gideon says he's using racist ideology to cover simple greed.
Exactly.
So the team decide to track Minton anyway because they don't think he's responsible, but it could be one of his cronies, and they think Minton will know exactly who it is and will go straight to them after speaking to the FBI. Thankfully, Garcia does have a break in the case. You see, there were fingerprints on the sliding glass door.
Ooh.
I know, Sarah. You're thinking, wait, didn't they say they didn't want to bother with the fingerprints? Yeah. Don't worry. Someone did their fucking job and got prints off the sliding glass door and found Ingrid's driving license from Texas. She's the missing party goer.
Dun, dun, dun.
So congratulations to the one person on this team who knows how to do their job.
Yay!
Hotch, Elle, and JJ visit Mr. Greason, who's Ingrid's dad, to ask why he hasn't reported his daughter missing. And I'll be honest, I was a little confused at first because he was like, well, I didn't know she was missing. And they all treat this like it's the most suspicious thing in the world. But she's a grown adult who does not live at home. And I don't think this party was like a month ago or anything.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure this is in like a few days.
Yeah.
So what, he just didn't ring his daughter for 5 days and you guys are treating this like, that's suspicious. They act like it's completely weird for a parent in 2006 to not know exactly where their adult children are any time. I doubt this. But anyway, he does say, I haven't spoken to her in 2 weeks, which I think is a little long, because I think we spoke to our parents like maybe once a week at uni.
At least, yeah.
But he's like, no one has threatened him or threatened Ingrid. He had no reason. He says he had no reason to suspect that anything was wrong. You know, if she's just at college, what's he supposed to do? They ask him to go on TV, make an appeal with the idea of humanizing Ingrid to her captors. Upstairs, turns out Morgan is there rifling through Ingrid's bedroom. And I think that's a little weird considering that they obviously went, can our teammate go upstairs and rifle through your daughter's bedroom? But they hadn't even said she'd been kidnapped at this point. Like, they're literally breaking the news and Morgan's not in the room. And so imagine the FBI just turning up at your door and being like, can we just search for your daughter's room? Is that okay? No. Why? You have to tell me before I let you. Anyway, the team are saying that most parents will blame themselves if their child is kidnapped, even though it couldn't logically be their fault.
Yeah.
And guilty parents tend to play down any guilt. And it's like, that's odd. So Greason is giving an appeal. It's being watched by 2 men in a motel while Ingrid is gagged and tied on the bed next to them. The two discuss that the only option now is to get rid of Ingrid, and you're like, oh my god, they're going to kill her. This is awful. Luckily, like 30 seconds later, Elle comes in, says, Hotch, there's a caller on the line. He doesn't want to speak to Greason. He doesn't want to give a ransom demand. He wants to talk to the FBI. The kidnappers are willing to drop Ingrid off and turn themselves in. If only they don't tell Greason what they're doing. Like, what? This is sounding very confusing. If you're thinking, this is fucking odd, so does the team. And then we get the revelation that Greason paid these guys to kidnap Ingrid. You know, dad stuff. The team meet the kidnappers on a road, like on the outside of the town. The kidnappers have taken their shirts off to show them they're not concealing any weapons, and they surrender kneeling on the floor. Elle runs to the truck to get Ingrid, who is still gagged and bound in the back of the truck. And I'm sorry, if your plan is to turn yourself and Ingrid in, we're taking you back, we're really sorry, we're going to drop you off with the police. Why is she still gagged and bound?
Yeah.
How did you get her out of the motel room and into the truck being gagged and bound? This is the daytime. Like, I know she has no reason to trust you, but what's the worst thing that happens? She gets out of the car on her own accord and runs to a shop and says, call the police, I've been kidnapped. You were about to do that anyway. So it turns out these two guys worked for Greason and had criminal records which he overlooked. And then he was like, hey, you two with the criminal records, come over here. I've got some extra work for you. I need you to kidnap my daughter, take her by force, hide her in a motel. I'll be round the next day. You know, dad stuff. And the team are like, sorry, did you not have any questions about this? Any reservations? And the kidnappers are like, well, we did until he gave us half the money up front. And I'm not sure you understand what reservations means. If you're okay with kidnapping a teenage girl for like $2,500, I'm going to say there wasn't much of a reservation there. The kidnappers explained that they had nothing to do with the murders. They saw it on telly the next day and they called Greason, who said, sit tight, I'll come get Ingrid later. And then one of the kidnappers gives quite an iconic line. I know we're dumb, but we're not stupid. After they saw Greason give the press conference where he's appealing for his daughter's safe return, they immediately called the cops. And I think more criminals should just call the cops. Like, I have had a change of mind. This is a bad idea. Let's just turn ourselves in before things get any worse. Now, it does sound far-fetched that these guys would kidnap Ingrid and not know anything about the brutal murders that took place just minutes later. But neither is deviating from their story, and Gideon believes them. Gideon and Hotch then talk to Greason, and they are grilling him severely, because obviously it looks like he knew the murders were going to take place, and he arranged to get his daughter out of there, which is the worst case scenario. He denies having anything to do with the murders, and he asks for his phone call, and Gideon ignores this completely. Doesn't even say, oh, you don't want a phone call. It just blatantly is just like, anyway, we're not done, and starts riling him up. Why don't I have a board for fucking Gideon?
Yeah, we need to make one.
So he's saying, maybe your daughter had something to do with the killings. That's why you're keeping quiet now. You kidnapped her to get her away from the other murderers. But you're just clamming up. You don't want your daughter to be tried as a murderer. Gideon then starts fucking running. Greason is yelling after him, but Gideon's like, I'm gone. And Greason's like, you stay the hell away from my daughter. And that's about as likely as you expect. Hotch is like, give me all the information about Ingrid now. And the dad tries to be like, oh, she's just very private. Oh, okay then. Well, I won't pry. There are 5 dead kids, but, you know, if your daughter doesn't like people prying into their fucking life, there are 5 dead kids. I couldn't care less if your daughter was like, please don't read my journals. Reed and Morgan are at the hospital going to visit Ingrid. Morgan gets a phone call from Garcia and steps away. So Reed steps in on his own. Like, Morgan asks if he's sure, and Reed's like, yeah, no, this is fine. And the one time they don't send Elle to do this. I know that I criticize them for constantly sending Elle to deal with traumatized people. But I don't think they should have sent Reed.
No.
Reed flashes the badge, tries to introduce himself and get her to answer some questions, but she just keeps repeating her name and social security number over and over and over and over again. Reed leaves, backs out the door, not saying a word, which is just quite funny. Cut back to the police station. The sheriff is saying that Minton and the American Defense Union are probably not a part of these killings because the officers have been surveilling them and no one has made an unexpected move. Morgan rings Hotch with an update saying Ingrid's not catatonic anymore, but she's answering every question like she's a prisoner of war. Morgan also fills Hotch in on what Garcia told him, which is that Ingrid hasn't been at school for over a year, despite having good grades. She just suddenly dropped out, left campus, and gave no information to anyone about where she was going. Which does make me think, how did she get with these 5 people? Like, at least some people at the school have to have known where she was going, because she's clearly still friends with them. Hotch takes this information, looks at recent phone records for Greason, and determines that Ingrid was in a cult. Outside the Minton residence, one officer is watching the house, relaying an update to the station via radio. Unfortunately, he's like, so quiet, and things are about to go bad real quickly after this. Someone comes up the side of the cop car brandishing a knife, and this knife, it looks like the same one that, well, it's the same one that we saw in the murders in the beginning, but it also looks like the one that Black Wolf had in his drawer. Because it's just got those curves, like I don't quite know how to explain it. Now, we don't see what he does to the cop immediately, because it cuts to inside the Minton bedroom with, again, the flashes of red, the knives, the blood spatter. The cop has been killed, obviously, before anyone went into the Minton residence. And after the Minton scene, it cuts back to the opposite, and there is blood all over that car. Back to the station, Hotch is saying to Greason, okay, you called a psychiatrist who specialized in getting kids out of cults, a deprogrammer? And Morgan says, well, he must be protecting Ingrid. He believes that Ingrid and the cult killed those kids. And Hotch says there's actually been another killing. The Minton family. 5 people, including their 3 daughters, aged 5, 8, and 11. Which is... yikes. So they try to get Greason to talk. They try to say, look, did Ingrid have a change of heart? We can talk to the judge, get a lower sentence. And finally, Greason is admitting guilt. He's saying he thinks it's his fault that she joined a cult, even though I'm not really sure how. But then he says she just started acting differently, using lots of jargon, which Hotch and Morgan explain as a sort of mind control practiced by cults to isolate their members from wider society. Apparently, Ingrid was telling Greason that he was a trespasser with no right to be in the desert, presumably meaning on Apache land. And I've got to say, I kind of agree with that. But then refers to someone called Grandfather, who taught Ingrid the way of the Gachi, who are Native American spirits. Doesn't get better from here. All this new information has changed their profile. They're now looking for a cult leader, most likely a man 25 to 35, with a high level of intelligence. Reed categorizes him as a sociopath underachiever with an extremely abusive childhood, and obviously someone with an interest in the Apache culture. The team narrowed down that the cult leader probably used to be a student at Tara Mesa University, so they are looking for anyone who studied extensively in Native American cultures there. The team and Ingrid turn up at the Minton household. Black Wolf is there, and he's going to give Ingrid a tour of the crime scenes, and I don't think that's going to go well.
Nope.
Ingrid, who looks like she's feigning a drug-induced state, is pulled by the sheriff from the car and taken over to Black Wolf, but she already knows all about him. They take her through the house where there are obvious signs of a struggle, blood everywhere on the walls, and he takes her directly into the little girl's bedroom. There is blood over the toys, the blankets, the books, everywhere. These young girls died a horrific death, but Ingrid almost looks horrified, but not quite. She looks like how you would watch it if you were watching it on TV, like, anyway. Like, she looks at it as if she's seeing a movie. And just at the point where you're thinking, oh my God, she might actually be feeling emotion, she says the frankly horrifying line, I think 3 little trespassers met the vengeful blade of the tribe. And at this point, Black Wolf shows a lot more composure than I would, because I would have hit her before she finished that sentence. And then Ingrid, oh my God, she goes on to tell him that there are only 2 people, the Apache and those who trespass against us. And Black Wolf has to tell her, you're not Apache. To which she accuses him of not being Apache. I'm sorry, little white girl. The tribal activist is actually the person who's Apache, not you. She says grandfather tested her by sending her to the desert mountains, blessed by the Gahi. And I'm like, I think you just smoked peyote in a desert. I don't think this was any kind of spiritual thing.
Trip in every sense of the word.
Turns out, in a surprise that no one, and by that I mean everyone, saw coming, grandfather figure doesn't actually know that much about the Apache culture he claims to be a part of, which is why he refers to them as Apache, which is a word meaning enemy, when the tribe themselves would refer to themselves as the Dene, which means the people. Also, I'm now a little confused because we were using the word Apache throughout the entire thing, and I was like, am I supposed to be using Dene? Wait, I'm not sure where to go. I'm not sure what's the most sensitive word to use, but we don't even have time to get into that because Ingrid shouts off her mouth by combining her ridiculous racism against Native Americans alongside racism against Jewish people. So that's a thing we don't have time to unpack here. Ingrid is getting more and more upset as Hotch and Black Wolf point out that grandfather has been lying and distorting Native American traditions to suit his own will. And through questioning Ingrid, they determine that the cult is living in a remote area called the Deadlands. Morgan has thankfully got the information about the cult leader, Jackson Callie, who was expelled from Terra Mesa University for peyote possession. Turns out he's actually got kicked out of quite a few schools and studied Native American culture at every school. And I just have some questions. How are you getting into all these schools? Are they not looking at your previous records? Like, oh, you got kicked out of this university. Why? Let's investigate before we let you into our university. Surely, someone in admissions is being like, well, he did 2 months here, 3 months here. He lasted a whole 5 months here. But here, he was out by the end of Freshers Week. You'll never find out. And I'm just like, how much debt is he now in? They determine that both Jackson and Ingrid were in a seminar led by Black Wolf on Native American culture, which is how they know so much about him. Garcia is dragging up all she can on Callie, but his last address turned up cold, and the only reason they know he's still in the area is because he keeps getting arrested breaking into motels. And in a surprise to no one, there's an abandoned motel in the middle of the desert, and rather than developers taking over that motel and building on that land, they decided to build on Native American burial sites. That was, and I stress this, intentionally not being developed. What is wrong with you people? Go knock down the motel and build on top of that. Don't freaking be like, right, okay, this is alright, we're just going to build something on your graveyard. No. Stop building on burial sites.
Weird.
Anyway, so the cult moved into the abandoned motel, and the developers, rather than, kicking out a cult, decided to kick out the Native Americans. Nice. The team, minus Gideon, Reed, and presumably JJ, are investigating the abandoned motel. It's as bad as you're imagining it. It's not somewhere you would feel comfortable staying. Thankfully, Hotch comes up behind Callie, pointing a gun straight at him. Callie does not he does not respond to his government name. And Hotch literally has to call him grandfather to get him to turn around. And that is, say it with me,
Insufferable.
exactly. I hope that all of the listeners also joined in with that. In-fucking-sufferable.
Also, the words that were flying around my head was pretentious prick.
Yes, exactly. Self-indulgent douche. So, turns out Callie is the only one at the motel. So where are his band of cult members? Well, nowhere good, but we'll have to leave it like that for at least a few more minutes while we get introduced to Callie. By the way, his face is not giving charismatic cult leader to me. It's giving guy who was upset that Greg's was out of steak bakes at 10 a.m. No one cares, dude. Get out of my way. Reed tells the team that Callie had to bounce from foster home to foster home as a child, which is a very sad statistic about the system. And then that Callie has an IQ of 189, which, if I may remind you, is 2 points above Reed. Callie does have criminal records. He's been in prison for auto theft. He became religious behind bars and somehow convinced a mass murderer in the prison to attack another prisoner who was harassing Callie. All right, cool. Not going to go into that. Black Wolf asks what Callie's connection with the Apache is, and Sarah, can you guess it?
Fuck off.
Yeah, completely. Surprise, surprise, jack shit. Callie was just using the Apache culture as a means to an end. And if not them, he would have just found another culture to appropriate for whatever the fucking end game is here. I don't even know.
Neither do I.
We find out that Callie and other cult leaders are sort of like profilers because they can read the people around them, brainwash them, and it's not lost on me that basically he could have been Reed. He could have been a genius profiler, because it's not even like Reed had a really stable childhood. I know you don't know this yet, Sarah, but he doesn't have a stable childhood. So it's not even like it's a class thing. It's not even like it's he had 2 loving parents and a normal middle-class home. Hotch decides to interview Callie again, give him a lot of flattery, try and make him trip up on his own ego. A lot of bullshit about how he only teaches love, blah, blah, blah. Callie then says the Apache will soon run the trespassers off their land, and Black Wolf confronts him by saying, "You don't speak for the Apache, coward." And then Callie says the quiet part out loud because when Hotch asks if Callie plans to murder all the white people in the state, Callie is like, "Oh, we won't have to. I'm going to start a race war." All right, Manson. Bit bold of you to say that out loud. And then we get the most satisfying scene of the episode. Callie decides to talk about the murder of Black Wolf's father, and Black Wolf grabs him and throws him against a wall. Unfortunately, the rest of the FBI team pulled Black Wolf off, but I would have found it really, really satisfying to, just see him offed. And then in another memorable quote of the episode, Morgan says, Black Wolf got Callie to reveal his true nature. He's a racist. None of this was for the sake of the Apache. Wow. Who would have guessed?
Oh, shit.
Anyway, so where are the rest of the cult members, I hear you ask?
Yeah.
Well, I did tell you it was nowhere good. Turns out they stole. You know how Minton was like, "I've got 450 guns. No one's taking them off me." All right, well, they proved real helpful in defending your family from murder. But anyway,
Yes.
Turns out the cult have stolen them. So initially the team's like, wait, weren't the cult using Native American weapons and tactics? Honey, did you miss the part where Callie was like, I'm going to start a race war? Now, the cult has decided to mimic the white nationalist side of town by stealing the guns to attack the Native Americans on the reservation, because then it will look like the American Defense Union did it. Ugh. I just have to say something here. You know how sometimes you hear something, like a rumor about somebody, and you're like, oh, that couldn't possibly be true.
Yeah.
And then if you hear that same rumor about someone else, you're like, yeah, that actually does kind of track. I don't need any other evidence. I kind of agree with you. Like, Sara is going to cut this part out of the episode. But basically, when Brendan Urie from Panic at the Disco got accused of, like, sexual harassment, I was like, yeah, that kind of tracks. It's not like I've ever heard Brendan talk and been like, oh, wow, that sounds like someone incredibly unproblematic. And
dodgy.
Yeah. So, just in this bit, being like, well, we're going to take the guns and we're going to make people think the American Defense Union killed the Native Americans. It's like, yeah, people will readily believe that because obviously. So it turns out, just like Manson before him, Callie has instructed his cult members to steal the guns, attack the Native Americans, and start a fucking race war. So the team race to the school on the reservation because they think that's the most vulnerable space. It cuts from scenes of a classroom full of kids to Hotch and Black Wolf walking around the school in the dark, with Black Wolf telling Hotch not to use his gun, but the baton instead. Something which I didn't even realise Hotch carried. Now, not to come off as an NRA supporter, but if there were a time I'd like the police to use guns, it is against someone else wielding a gun at a primary school.
Yeah.
And we actually get quite a famous quote in the fandom from Hotch now. Black Wolf tells him there are many paths to the same place, which is much better than the British version of there's more than one way to skin a cat.
It's so classy.
Oh. And Hotch tells Black Wolf that he sounds just like a fortune cookie. And honestly, I have seen that quote for years and I'd forgotten that it was in this episode. So I was just like, oh, Hotch is definitely talking about Garcia there. Oh. The cult members are approaching the school with the rifles in hand. They've walked past a school bus and they are just storming inside the unlocked school doors. The classroom is empty, but it cuts to a scene of children huddling on the floor in what looks like it might be a closet, with the teacher, Miss Bear, standing watch at the door. We see the cult members walk through the school hallways, and then out of fucking nowhere, Hotch uses the baton to knock one of them so that their gun falls on the floor, like, and then up again to hit the guy in the face before he's even realised what happened. And it does feel like that you could put the Benny Hill theme tune on the back of this.
The old one too.
Oh my god. Now, Hotch does kick the guy's gun away before moving on, but I'm like, I don't know that guy was fully knocked out. He could easily, like, get his gun. Maybe you should take it with you. But what do I know? The scene keeps shifting from the cult members walking through the school and the children huddled in the classroom. In some sort of storage room, two cult members are wandering around. They're wandering around with the guns drawn, but Black Wolf knocks one of them unconscious before essentially knocking over several metal storage racks onto the other one. I do like the kind of like vaudeville vibe they're going for now.
I know.
I think that should happen in more crime shows. They should just see cops like, you know, sticking out their foot from the side and then someone's tripping over it. They're just like, okay, guys, it's all right. We're going to get this box of marbles. We'll throw it out there. And now we defeated a terrorist group who are all like, whoa. So the cult member who got hit in the head by one of the boxes falling on him finally thought, oh, I bet I can best Black Wolf in a fight, in a knife fight. And Black Wolf is very skilled in Native American traditions and knows how to use his fucking knife. So I'm not sure where the kid got this unearned confidence from. Yeah. I'll actually let you into something now. He's a white man. That's where he got the unearned confidence from. The kid will not listen to reason when Black Wolf tells him to stay down so he doesn't get hurt. And so he gets hurt. Like, I don't know what to tell you, mate.
It was an amateur.
Hotch is wrestling another member of the cult to the floor, punching him, throws the gun away, and then he catches up with Black Wolf and shoots a female cult member who has literally just opened the door to the storage area and is about to shoot Black Wolf. And then the cult member behind her drops his gun and it's like, don't shoot, I give up. But it's like, oh, well, a really loyal cult member, weren't you? Somehow, Black Wolf and Hotch have managed to hog-tie the cult members, gag them, and drag them out to the steps outside the school. All of this without somehow being stopped. And I'm like, I think the cult members would still put up a fight to being hog-tied and dragged through the school to the steps. How did you do it? Did you leave? Did you hog tie them, put them out there, and then go back to the next one? Yeah. Are you carrying them through the school, or are you just dragging them by the ropes?
I did giggle at that scene though, because they were all little hog tied, and then Hodge was just like stone faced, just like.
Yes. So Sarah and I do not have any idea how this was done. Yeah. So answers on an AO3 thick and let us know. So the rest of the police force and the BAU meet Hotch and Black Wolf at the steps. The sheriff asks about the children, and apparently they got the children out before the cult members arrived. So what were these clips of the children huddled somewhere?
Yeah.
Did you take the students away from the school but still in a big group huddling on the floor? Not like to their parents' house, but like, okay guys, we're just going to sit on the floor in this janitor's closet at the local McDonald's. What is this?
Yeah, that was a bit weird.
It was odd. So Black Wolf is then giving Hotch some stick for shooting someone, and Morgan is like, well, I would rather be shot than cut up like the cult member Black Wolf thought. They don't think he's going to make it. And also, just a question, did you also hog-tie the guy who is bleeding heavily from his wounds and isn't going to make it? Because I think that's illegal. I'm pretty sure that's illegal. But anyway, no time to investigate that. We cut to a diner, there's a jukebox playing a song. Hotch walks in, and initially I'm wondering if they've gone home because there was no jet scene, so it's like, are they still in New Mexico? But they must be home because Sean is behind the counter, and Hotch wants to apologise for being dismissive earlier and give Sean the number of the head of the New York field office in case Sean gets into any trouble up there. And I do have to say, what kind of trouble do you think your brother would be in that he would need the number of the New York field office FBI? I mean, he's going to be a chef. This isn't even like, if you get mugged, call this guy on the Bronx police. Anyway, the brothers make up. Sean makes Hotch a nice dinner, and they joke about how Hotch needs to get out of the office here. And I'll level with you, that's not going to happen. And then, so that's the end. Fades to black.
So thanks for that, Emma. And we'll be back with the episode discussion after this short bit.
Welcome back to Looking for a Man in His 30s. So now we're on to the part where we discuss the episode, some interesting points, notable guest stars, and of course, our baby girl or pretty boy of the episode. So, Sarah, for some reason, in interesting points, I put The Scientist by Coldplay, which I think must have been played at some point in the episode, and I probably got off the Criminal Minds wiki.
Yeah.
I don't know Coldplay well enough to know which music was their song. So, it's kind of embarrassing that is the only interesting point I had. But do you have anything else?
To be fair, no.
There was nothing interesting about this episode, whatever.
Apart from how good looking that Shauna Hodge now.
An interesting part of this episode is that we learn Hotch has a brother, and then we hear nothing about him for another 7 or 8 seasons.
Yeah.
Well, he has moved to New York to run a restaurant. Doesn't have a lot of time to come back and see his nephew. So we'll move on to notable guest stars.
Yes, we shall.
So first of all, we have Chad Allen, who plays the unsub Jackson Callie. He has a bunch of guest starring roles and a few recurring or main roles in the 1980s. One of them was David Witherspoon in Our House. He's now retired from acting and works as a psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Robert Curtis Brown, who played Peter Greason, the man who arranged for his daughter to be kidnapped, he has a lot of guest and recurring roles in big properties like The Handmaid's Tale, Dear White People, Code Black, a show that Sarah and I famously love. But oh my God, he was in High School Musical 2, 3, and Sharpay's Fabulous Adventure, playing Sharpay and Ryan's dad. Is this where I'm going to find out that Sarah has never watched any of the High School Musical canon?
I've watched them, I just can't remember, apart from the main characters, who else was in it.
So Gregory Cruz, who played John Blackwater, he also played Detective Bobby Stillwater in 44 episodes of Saving Grace. He's also in a movie that was just called Dickwad, and to be honest, I did no research after learning that. I just wanted to put that in.
What a title.
And Chris Ellis, who plays the sheriff, Jimmy Rhodes, he is actually best known for playing Deke Slayton in Apollo 13, you know, with Tom Hanks. He was one of the other astronauts that was going up. Oh, and Skylar Shea, who was Ingrid,
yeah.
She's in many properties in the Baby Geniuses franchise. And I'll give you a teaser of the Baby Genius franchise. Underground research facility, babies hypnotizing bus drivers, and Liechtenstein. Well, Sarah, I'm afraid I put nothing else there, so you're going to have to watch the Baby Geniuses franchise if you'd like to know more.
Sure, why not?
Okay, well, Sarah's going to do a whole side cast on that. I won't be joining her. Okay, so now we move on to basically the best section of our podcast.
Yeah.
Our baby girl, pretty boy of the episode. So, Sarah, did you have any thoughts that you wanted to share?
Well, literally the only person I could think of.
It's Hotch!
Yeah.
I know. You guys thought we were going to give it to Elle with her, 5 lines in this episode. But we have taken some bias training. Yeah. And we are now allowing other people to become the episode MVP.
So we have to give the other people a chance.
Yeah. We do, Sarah. It's important to us to uphold the sanctity of this this section of the podcast.
Well, Hodge does deserve it.
He does. So
he had some badass moments.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I mean, he basically took down the tribe with Black Wolf, and honestly, amazing. Beautiful. This was big action work. So there was good professional work and also personal because he's trying to repair his relationship with Sean.
Yeah.
So it's both a good episode for Hotch because he was able to take down the cult members with barely using a gun.
Yeah.
And he also is trying to repair his relationship with his brother and realizing that he might not always be the right person to decide other people's lives.
The curses of an older sibling. You have to know when to let go.
Oh no. Don't start a war, you sister. My God.
Anyways, we'll be right back with a true crime recap after this short break.
Welcome back for our true crime recap. Sarah, it's time to deliver the profile.
Thanks, Emma. So, while we're on the topic of cults and race wars, it only seemed fitting that this week's true crime would be about Charles Manson. So, obviously, Charles Manson seemed the most like the unsub of this episode, Jackson Kelly. And in fact, in the episode, Colley's cult was compared to the Manson family on several occasions, and they were referenced here and there throughout the clip by several characters. So, like all cult leaders, they'd be able to profile and read people to gain their trust before then manipulating and brainwashing them. In the graphs, their followers would then blindly follow any instructions that were given to them. The comparison between both men is that they focus their cult ideas on the belief that a race war was inevitable between white people and an ethnic minority. So Native Americans in Cully's case and black people in Manson's. So, should we get into the backstory of Charles Manson?
Yeah, just let me put this china plate further away from me.
Yeah, let's not break shit. Beautiful.
Proceed.
Thank you. So, Charles Mills Maddox was born in Cincinnati, Ohio on November the 12th of 1934 to 16-year-old Ada Kathleen Maddox, a runaway from Kentucky. His biological father was believed to be Colonel Walker Henderson Scott Sr., who Maddox filed a paternity suit against in 1937.
But realistically, that name is too long to go on a birth certificate anyway.
That too. Anyways, it turns out he was a con artist who claimed he was an army colonel and pretended to be called away on duty when he discovered that Maddox was pregnant.
Ooh!
Yeah, but get this, turns out Colonel was just his actual given name.
What?
Yeah, so he wasn't a colonel in the army, that was just his first name. Yeah.
I don't even have a card for that. It's
Yes.
just like bonkers.
Mental. And you may ask, why did I refer to him with the surname Maddox? Well, technically that was his name, but just before Manson was born, his mum married a William Eugene Manson. And later on, Charles was given his surname. So, on his birth certificate is Maddox, but later it was changed to Manson. So, the young mother would often go out drinking with her brother, leaving Charles in the care of babysitters. By 1937, the marriage had broken down and the couple had divorced. 2 years later, Kathleen and her brother Luther were arrested for assault and robbery and were sentenced to 5 and 10 years respectively. Charles was then placed in the care of his aunt and uncle in West Virginia while his mum was in prison. When she was paroled in 1942, she also moved to West Virginia and regained custody of Charles. However, she continued to drink herself into oblivion while Charles often played truant from school.
So not Mother of the Year.
Yeah, not even mother of the fucking decade.
Ugh.
They would later move to Indianapolis, where Kathleen met a fellow alcoholic, Louis Woodson Cavender Jr., at AA meetings.
She just done the thing for long names?
Probably. Sounds like it.
Ugh.
The pair married in August of 1943. And at this point, Manson's offences started ramping up. At the age of 9, he set his school on fire. He would also repeatedly get in trouble for petty theft and truancy.
So 9 years old, petty theft and truancy. That's a lot of things. Set his school on fire.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that goes nowhere good.
No, it just goes downhill from here. So, in 1947, at the age of 13, Manson was placed in the Gibbolt School for Boys in Terre Haute, Indiana, because there was a lack of foster placements available at the time. And this was a school for male delinquents that was run by Catholic priests. And that sentence alone tells you this isn't going to turn out great.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I mean, Sarah doesn't wish to besmirch the Catholics.
No.
But, as a Catholic...
So, corporal punishment was heavy at the school, and kids were often beaten with a wooden paddle or a leather strap, even for the smallest of infractions. In Christmas 1947, Manson fled the school and returned home. He would spend the holidays at his aunt and uncle's house in West Virginia, but his mother soon returned him back to the school after the festivities were over.
Oh.
Yeah.
I just don't understand, because he was put there because there weren't any foster placements. Hey, if you've surrendered him to the system, it's not your responsibility. Don't take him back to the school. Leave him with his aunt and uncle. Seemed to be fine there.
So, 10 months later, he escaped the school again. This time he went to Indianapolis, where he began living alone. He got a job delivering messages for Western Union, but often supplemented his wages with thefts to keep afloat. Over the next few years, he spent time flitting between juvenile correctional facilities and reform schools, after being caught stealing on many occasions. At the Indiana Boys' School, he was reportedly abused by fellow students with encouragement from a staff member. He ultimately ran away from that school 18 times. Gets worse. In the early 1950s, Manson was caught raping a boy at knife point at one of the facilities he was attending. As a result, he was transferred to the Federal Reformatory in Virginia, where he admitted a further 8 serious disciplinary offences, before being sent to a maximum security reformatory in Ohio, where he was ordered to stay until his 21st birthday in 1955. However, he was released in May of 1954 for good behaviour, and into the care of his aunt and uncle back in West Virginia. Just 8 months later, he married hospital waitress Rosalie Jean Willis. The pair travelled to LA later that year in a car that he'd stolen from Ohio. When the theft was discovered, Manson was apprehended and charged. He received 5 years probation after he underwent a psychiatric evaluation. He was arrested in March 1956 in Indianapolis for failing to attend a hearing in LA for a similar auto theft charge that had been filed in Florida.
That was so many states.
Yeah, I know. And
how many people are dealing with this auto theft?
And they're quite spaced apart, so God knows. And as he was still on probation from the previous offence, his probation was revoked and he was sentenced to 3 years at Terminal Island in LA.
Lord, what?
Terminal Island.
Well, that sounds like something I'm gonna Google immediately.
Yeah.
That sounds insane. Go ahead. You continue. I'll report back if it's anything insane.
Oh, thank you. So, during this time, his wife had become pregnant, and a month after he'd been incarcerated, Rosalie gave birth to his son, Charles Manson Jr. Just 2 years later, the pair had divorced after Manson found she'd been living with another man.
Well, to be fair, weren't you on a fucking terminal island for the cars you can't stop stealing?
True.
I don't know, man. Sometimes there's just the consequences of your own actions coming back to bite you in the ass.
Yes. However, after his release from prison, Manson was now living in California, where he began pimping a 16-year-old girl while receiving financial support from another girl who had wealthy parents.
Excuse me? How is he receiving financial support from this other girl? How did the wealthy parents go, oh, the man with a child by another woman who's just come out of prison? Oh, yes, we'll give you some money for him.
So, for the next decade, he was constantly in and out of prison for a range of offences. Too many to list, so you can find it yourself. Upon his release in 1967, Manson moved from LA to Berkeley, a move which should have violated his probation. But after calling the San Francisco Probation Office, he was put under the supervision of federal probation officer Roger Smith. Smith.
God, like the Roger Smith in American Dad, the alien.
Yeah.
Oh, that's excellent. Probably this is going to work its way into the American Dad canon if it hasn't already. Never mind.
Smith also worked at the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic, where he and the clinic's founder, David Smith, were conducting a study on the effects of LSD and methamphetamine on the counterculture movement in the area. Manson began taking LSD at this time, and he visited the clinic often.
I'm just going to say, if your probation officer is giving you LSD, this might not be the best probation officer in the world.
No. So this substance abuse, combined with the free love movement that was going on in San Francisco at the time, led Manson to begin preaching about his own philosophies, which quickly gained him a loyal following. His philosophy was inspired by various things, from the Bible to the Beatles.
Was this just before or just after John Lennon said we're bigger than Jesus?
Fuck knows.
Ooh.
So Manson would target social outcasts and emotionally insecure people and manipulate them to follow and heed to his every word.
I haven't been targeted by a cult.
Me neither. Because we're cleverer than that and we don't listen to idiots.
I don't think I'm that smart. What I think is that if anyone was like, oh, would you like to come down to our thing? And I'd just be like, no. Sounds like an art of effort. No, I don't want to meet like-minded people. I don't want to bond. Oh, this sounds like some sort of religion thing. Or they're going to try and enroll me in a multi-level marketing scheme.
I just hate people. So.
Yeah. We'd never be in a cult because we frankly can't stand more than 2 people at a time.
Yeah. While in San Francisco, Manson became acquainted with Mary Brunner and soon moved in with her. He would then meet teenage runaway Lynette Fromm and convince her to move in with him and Brunner. Before long, several more women moved into the property, and a number of men would also join what was coined as the Manson family. Manson established himself as a guru, and he and his followers began traveling around the West Coast in an old adapted school bus, before finally settling properly in LA, but moving between Topanga Canyon, Venice Beach, and Malibu occasionally. David Smith, the owner of the clinic that the family frequented, would later claim in his book, Love Needs Cure, that Manson attempted to reprogram his followers' minds to fully submit to him through the use of LSD and unconventional sexual practices. He didn't explain what these were. Well,
did he attempt to do anything about it, or was he just like, well, see where this goes?
God knows. By the sounds of it, no one intervened. And at some point, the family turned into a doomsday-like cult, and Manson coined his apocalyptic vision, Helter Skelter, which, weirdly enough, was from a Beatles song.
I just have to say, I think the entire point of our podcast, Sarah, is telling people to intervene sooner. Yeah. If you see some guy who's like giving out LSD to people and trying to like reprogram their minds, do something first. Yeah. Don't just be like, well, that's an interesting tidbit. I'll write that down.
To take a quote from the Tube in London, sorry.
Oh my goodness. And also, could I just tell you a fact that I know that I don't think you've included?
Yes.
Okay, so teenage runaway Lynette Fromm, she is known as Squeaky. And to be honest, I think it's because at some point one of the places they were living in was like this old abandoned farmhouse where there was some guy there who was just like, yeah, live on my land, who cares? Anyway, so basically he would sexually harass the female members of the cult and grab them, and Squeaky got her name because she squeaked every time it happened. And I'm like, so this is just bad on top of bad.
I did leave a lot out because we would have been here forever.
Oh, yeah, no.
But
Manson, there have been people that have filled an entire 6-volume book about him. But yeah, I just wanted to say that because I was like, in everything that I've ever said, everything that I've ever seen, it's been like, Lynette Squeaky from. And it's like, all right.
So, in this apocalyptic vision, Manson claimed that an apocalyptic war would emerge from racial tensions between black and white people, caused by black men committing crimes because they were being sexually deprived of white women and the white men were retaliating. So when this supposed war begins, Manson and his family would wait it out in a secret city under Death Valley before later emerging as the only remaining white people on Earth and gaining power over the ethnic minority. Yes.
See how I really don't see how he was like, okay, so we'll wait for black people to kill all of the white people, and then they will see me, a white man who seems at best unhinged, and they will treat me as their unquestioned lord. Like, odd, right? Like, I don't even see, even if he was like, this is definitely going to happen, I don't see why black people would be like, oh yeah, that one white guy, he's fine. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm trying to make sense of something that is obviously bullshit.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm bothering.
Would you like to know some of the known members of the Manson family?
Yes.
I have a list of names. So we have Charles Tex Watson. He was born in 1945. Susan Atkins, she was born in 1948. Linda Kasabian, she was born in 1949. Bobby Beausoleil was 1947 also. Leslie Van Houten was born in 1949. Steve Grogan, 1952. Patricia Krenwinkel, 1947. Mary Brunner, 1943. Lynette Fromm, 1948. Kathleen Sher, 1942. Sandra Good, 1944. And Bruce McGregor Davis was born in 1942. As you note, a lot of them, well, all of them were at least a decade younger than Manson.
Yeah, that's quite a lot of people.
So you can see the power he had over it.
Yeah, like none of them were even born in the 30s. This is definitely a guy in his perhaps 30s at this point, taking advantage of basically teenagers.
Yeah. So we shall get into some of the known victims of the Manson family. So July of 1969, Gary Allen Hinman, aged 34, was held captive for 2 days because they believed he had money. He claimed he didn't. So they held him captive. His ear was cut off. He was stabbed in the chest and abdomen with a sword. And the words "political piggy" were written on the wall in his blood, alongside a symbol for the Black Panther movement. In other words, to blame the Black Panthers for his death.
Yeah, of course, because the Black Panther movement wasn't getting enough blame from the police and politicians at the time.
No. Then, a month later, on the 9th of August, probably one of the more famous crimes that was committed by the Manson family, because one of the victims was Sharon Marie Tate, who was a famous actress at the time. She was 26
and married to Roman Polanski.
Yes. She was 26 at the time, and she was 8 months pregnant. She was stabbed 16 times, and the word "pig" was written on the door in her blood as the killers left. Jay Sebring was 35. He was a celebrity hairdresser. He was shot with a .22 revolver and stabbed 7 times. Wojciech Frykowski was 32. He was struck with a gun, then shot twice, and then stabbed 51 times. Abigail Ann Folger, she was 25, and she was Wojciech's girlfriend. She was stabbed 28 times.
She was also the heiress to the Folger coffee empire.
And the youngest victim, Stephen Earl Parent, was 18. He was leaving in a car at the time that the group entered the premises, and his wrist was slashed, and he was then shot 4 times. A day later, can you believe it, on the 10th of August, Lenore LaBianca and Rosemary LaBianca, husband and wife, he was 44, she was 38, they were attacked in their own home. Lenore was stabbed 26 times and the word war was carved into his abdomen. Rosemary was stabbed 16 times and then a further 25 times post-mortem. The words rise and death to pigs were written on the walls in blood. The final known victim was murdered on the 26th of August. Donald Shea, he was 35. He was struck with a pipe wrench while in a car with his murderers. He was stabbed and brutally tortured. His skeletal remains were later found nearly a decade later.
That's fucking horrifying.
Yeah. During a raid at Barker Ranch in Death Valley on October the 12th of 1969, Manson and a number of his followers were arrested on suspicion of auto theft and arson, so as not to raise suspicion that the cops had been investigating them for the aforementioned murders. On December the 8th, Manson was indicted for all of the murders. The trial began in June of 1970, and the following January he was found guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder for the deaths of 7 people. Initially, he received the death penalty, but this was later overturned, and he was resentenced to life in prison with a possibility of parole. In January 2017, Manson was rushed from Corcoran Prison to Mercy Hospital in Bakersfield with gastrointestinal bleeding. He returned to prison 5 days later after receiving treatment. No details of his treatment or diagnosis were ever made public at the time. On November the 19th of that year, Manson died after suffering a cardiac arrest resulting from respiratory failure caused by colon cancer. Of the known Manson family members, 4 members are still in prison to this day: Krenwinkel, Watson, Beausoleil, and Davis. Atkins died from brain cancer in 2009. Van Houten was released in 2023 and is still on parole, while Grogan has been out since 1985 after he was let out after informing police where Shea's remains were.
Thank you for that, Sarah.
You're welcome.
That was, I'll be honest, awful.
Yep.
But thank you very much for being the person to cover it.
You're welcome. Obviously, I left a lot out because, like I said, we would have been here forever.
We do not have the time to cover it. Okay, Sarah, let's take a break, and then as a palate cleanser, we can come back with what would Penelope Garcia do? I'll give you a hint. It's something. We'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back to Looking for a Man in His 30s. So now we are on the part of the episode where we talk about what would Penelope Garcia do. So sometimes this is, most often it has been, we've been linking people with charities if they've been affected by things in this episode. We did already cover cults, and I know that we've done some causes more than once, but because we'd already covered cults, I thought that it might be good, and Sarah actually agreed, not just me. We thought it would be good in the What Would Penelope Garcia Do section to highlight the grave problems with colonialism that are still apparent today. So, Sarah, especially because we were supposed to be recording this last week, which would have been on Thanksgiving. And so Sarah will be covering the UK, who are no strangers to colonial violence and ongoing oppression. Yikes. And I will be covering it from the US. We're going to give you information about the place and give them, you know, perhaps there are some charities you can look up. There are some articles you can read. to learn more about it and the ongoing problems. But Sarah, you go ahead.
Thank you. So, Chagos is an archipelago of islands located in the Indian Ocean between the Seychelles and the Maldives. The archipelago's first inhabitants were enslaved people who had been brought over from Madagascar and Mozambique by French enslavers to work on coconut plantations. Centuries later, these people broke free from slavery and became Chagosians, the indigenous people who had their own distinct language and culture that they developed over time. During this time, the islands eventually became under British rule, whilst also partly governed by Mauritius. In 1966, Chagos became the British Indian Ocean Territory and was denied any claim for independence. Soon after, the UK began forcibly removing Chagosians from their homelands and displacing them to Mauritius and the Seychelles. It wasn't until 2002 that they were finally given the right to British citizenship. The aim for the displacement, you ask? Well, it was so that a military base could be created for the UK and the US in the archipelago. The UK's argument was that they considered Chagosians a non-permanent population, or transient workers, even though they'd been on the island for centuries. Leaked documents from the planning of the expulsion referred to the indigenous population as Tarzans and Man Fridays, which was a racist expression to describe a loyal and efficient servant. Over the past 6 decades, the UK has treated Chagos as a territory where international human rights law does not apply, while the US has continued to benefit from their strategic military base location, whilst also refusing to acknowledge or take any responsibility for the crimes against the native population. Might I add, the military base is set to remain in the archipelago for the next 99 years on Diego Garcia, the biggest island. So even if Chagosians were allowed to return, many cannot return to the island they once called home because the military base is still there. Where's the justice for these people?
Nowhere.
Absolutely nothing. They were the indigenous population of them islands, and they were forced out to make way for a bunch of white people.
Yeah.
It's just mind-boggling.
You're just like, sorry, this sort of thing is still going on. Give them back their fucking land and put the nuclear base, or the military base on your bloody land. Imagine if you just turned up at someone's house and were like, oh, hey, by the way, I'm going to put these military bases here. They'd be like, get the fuck out. I'm sorry.
So there's a website which is chagosianvoices.org. You can visit this website to learn more about the people and their fight to get back their islands, to get back their homeland, to get back to where they belong. And also, they're currently fundraising for Chagosian representation at the UN. So through the website, you can also donate to this cause. And Emma, would you like to discuss your relation to the US?
So, I know that this episode isn't going up until like January, February, but right now, and especially when I prepared this, it is Thanksgiving, a day where Americans all over the country come together and say what they are thankful for. But do you know who can't say that? The indigenous people whose land was stolen, whose people were massacred, and who are still experiencing the after effects and sometimes even just the effects right now of colonialism. So, as you may know, some in the US have started to label Christopher Columbus Day as Indigenous Peoples Day, and November, because it's the month that contains Thanksgiving, it's Native American Heritage Month. And so, how much do you know, Sarah, about the US and their treatment of Native Americans?
2 words, fucking brutal.
Yeah. So not only did they go there, kill people who disagreed with them, force people onto reservations, and you might be thinking, Sarah, well, I bet this was all in the past. I bet this all happened at a time before people were, I don't know, brushing their teeth every day. I'm sure this happened in a long gone era. No. Turns out that the US treatment of Native American people has been dire, to say the least. And it didn't end with the Trail of Tears or even forcing Native Americans onto reservations. In fact, it went on for quite a lot of time during the 20th century when the US government thought the best way to deal with the Native Americans was to take their children away from them and put them in white boarding schools so that the indigenous children would learn to be good, upstanding white citizens, completely stolen away from their culture, their words, their language, their families. Like, this was genuinely happening at a time when our parents were alive.
Yeah.
That is the horrific thing. Well, it's not the only horrific thing. There are many horrific things, is what I'm saying.
Mm.
So, over the past few years, as some Americans have done their best to kind of put the focus more on Native Americans, there has been a push for reparations for Native Americans. You know, because of everything the government did to them. So why would they want reparations? Let's just see. Well, it turns out the US's treatment of indigenous tribes actually violates civil rights and international human rights. Obviously, the boarding school policies where you ripped their children away from them, land rights because the people who went into America have a long history of taking land from Native Americans. Does that sound familiar, Sarah?
Mm.
And giving them what amounts to basically jack shit in return. So the idea is not just to give them money, but also to give them back their goddamn land. The last time that the US government agreed to give land back to Indigenous people was in 2012. And since then, the Truth and Healing Commission on Indian Boarding School Policy Act has failed to pass in Congress. And if you're thinking, wow, I wonder why that wouldn't pass through Congress. I mean, shall I give you 3 guesses about who has controlled Congress for the majority of the last 16 years?
Old white men.
Yes, you're right, Sarah. Old white men who don't like being told that their policies hurt people. They don't like being told that their grandparents and great-grandparents were, in some instances, outwardly racist, and in some instances, kind of passively racist, which I would argue is still not good. So in California, legislators created a statewide reparations fund to help Indigenous tribes in 2022, in addition to a land reparations bank in Oakland, California. But this kind of important thing has led to a lot of resistance among, sorry, how was it you put it, Sarah?
Old white men.
Yes, old white men. I'm not going to say it's all old white men, but they do make up the majority of the fucking Congress. So some people fear that capitulating to demands for Indigenous reparations would spur on other groups, like Black Americans, to ask for reparations. And what could the US government possibly have to apologize to Black people for? Oh, wait, Sarah, there is something that I heard about. I mean, it happened for about 300 years, I think, which is frankly a very small amount of time. More time than the US has been a country.
Yeah.
But I think it was called slavery. And I think they bought human beings and exploited them. And it goes far beyond what I'm prepared to say on this podcast. But I'm really sorry that you feel like giving reparations to Native Americans might set a precedent for other groups to be like, hey, you were shitty to us, because it's not just about, although it would be bad enough if it was about the slavery or the massacres.
Yeah.
Those things on their own would be bad enough. But do you know what disenfranchising people does over generations? It doesn't allow people to build generational wealth. Because if you may remember, I think it was in the last episode, I brought up that Black men who served in World War II were less likely to benefit from the GI Bill, which gave them access to free college and favourable mortgage loans. And when Black people can't go to college because they can't afford it, they don't get a better job. And then when they don't get a better job, they have less money. And then compounded with the fact that they also couldn't get the mortgage at the favourable rates, even though they served their fucking country.
Worse and worse.
Yeah. And it compounds and it compounds. So white people who were able to go to college free because they served in the army and got a good mortgage rate, they were able to have 2.4 kids and continue living the American dream with their lovely houses in suburbia. Whereas Black people faced a long and storied history of racism, shutting them out of financial institutions, redlining, being refused mortgages. And when you are unable to get a mortgage, you are unable to leave an asset down to your children. So then that means your children aren't inheriting a house when you die, unlike the white guy who you served with in World War II. Now, I think maybe be a little less worried about people claiming reparations. Like, you've already done a lot of damage. Just do this. Some legal scholars, and I am quoting this from the article that I will link, they're not shitting on it, but they're linking to others who do. Some legal scholars contend that raising Indigenous land claims in American courts may conflict with the statute of limitations. Well, I'm very sorry, but if the Native Americans were not legally able to make their claims during the statute, that's not their fault. If you say, no, it's perfectly fine to steal the land of Native Americans, but not white people, then I don't see how you thought they would be able to bring this up beforehand. Anyway, so basically I'm going to link to organizations that are wanting to get reparations for Native Americans because they've been treated, horrendously. So I'll be linking to the Native American Rights Fund, which fights to protect Native American heritage and Native American people. They are all about holding the government accountable, protecting Native American rights, and also providing the legal expertise that the Native American people would need to bring their cases against the government. But so anyway, it's the Native American Rights Fund, and I'll leave the link in the description for you.
And that's all for this week. We'll come back next week when we'll be talking about Criminal Minds Season 1, Episode 17, A Real Rain.
While you're waiting for the next episode, why not follow us on social media? We're on Instagram at Looking for a Man in His 30s Pod, Tumblr at Looking for a Man in His 30s Pod, or you can email us at lookingforamanhinhis30s@gmail.com. I couldn't edit that to match the social handles. Fail. All 3 times 30s is spelled out. Don't put 30, or you might get one of the bots that Instagram clearly thinks we are.
And you can also rate and review us on whichever platform you're using to listen to podcasts. And if you'll excuse us for being douchey influencers for a minute, if you're watching us on YouTube, please like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell notifications. It really helps more than you know.
Until next time.
This case is closed.